Hello, my name is Miss Erin from Silver River Museum, and I'm so disappointed that you can't come join us right now. So, since you can't come out to the museum, I decided to bring a little bit of the museum to you. As you go through this video, be sure you have your student journal ready to record any observations and evidence that you have. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope to see you very soon out at Silver River Museum. On this field trip, we're going to visit two of Silver River's ecosystems, the river and the sandhill. An ecosystem is an outdoor community that has everything that plants and animals need to stay alive. So, what plants and animals do you think you're going to see at the river or in the sandhill? And what characteristics are helping those plants and animals survive? Let's go take a look. Hop on board the Tamuquin and let's take a tour of Silver River. The Silver River is 5 miles long. It begins at the head springs, Silver Springs, where over 500 million gallons of fresh water exit the aquifer, creating the flow of this river every single day. The freshwater river is home to many plants and animals. So as we travel along, we're going to be looking along the shore and down in the water to explore some of the animals that live in this river. Take a look at the alligator swimming in the water. Do you see how just its eyeballs and its nostrils are above the waterline? This is a characteristic that helps it survive. It's able to hide from prey as it sneaks up on them. Also notice its color. The color of the alligator is known as camouflage, helping the alligator blend in. This cormorant just caught a fish. Cormorants are one of 2 diving birds that we'll find on the Silver River. The beak of the cormorant has a hook at the end, allowing it to grab the fish, as you see in the photo. Cormorants are the faster of the 2 diving birds, allowing them to catch the faster fish in the river. On the branch is an anhinga. Like the cormorant, the anhinga is a diving bird. It will dive into the water, use its pointy beak, and spear a fish. But what is it doing on that branch? Do you see how its wings are stretched out? The anhinga has to dry its wings after finding a meal in the water. Anhingas do not have oils on their feathers like a duck, and so by drying out their wings, they're able to warm up and fly a little better. Peek over the side of the boat. Do you see that turtle under the water? He's probably trying to get some food. Turtles are omnivores, meaning they'll eat both plants and meat. So things like grasses, leaves, fish, even some small reptiles and amphibians can make up their meal. Did you know there's monkeys along the Silver River? Look how well this young rhesus macaque monkey is able to grab on to those branches. The monkeys came here nearly 100 years ago in the 1930s when a riverboat captain wanted to make his river tours feel a little more like a jungle cruise. He purchased the rhesus macaque monkeys and brought them over. When he put them on an island, thinking they couldn't swim, his plan didn't work out so well. The monkeys, of course, swam off the island and have been on shore ever since. Manatees seek warm water every winter. They would die in the cold ocean waters. The Silver River is a perfect home because it's 72 degrees year-round. The snorkeler in the water is a scientist studying the manatees. They're one of the success stories in Florida. Once endangered, their population is now rebounding. However, they're still at risk from human activity. Things like boat propellers can seriously injure and even kill manatees. Have you noticed the trees all along the bank of the river? Many of them are known as bald cypress trees. And if you look close along the base of the trees, you'll see what look like stumps poking up out of the ground. Those aren't actually stumps. Those are the roots of the bald cypress trees. You see, if you're living along the edge of a river, you don't need deep roots to get water. However, that soft, mucky soil would be really easy to fall over in if you didn't have some support. The cypress knees are the roots of the tree that provide support so they don't fall over in the soft soil along the edge of the river. It's time to hop off the Timucuan and head to a new ecosystem, a little further upland this time. As we walk upland, we're first going to go over the swamp boardwalk. The swamp is vital to the health of the river. This not only filters the water in the river, provides a home for many plants and animals, it's also nature's flood control. As we start to move upland, you'll notice some changes. The first change you'll notice is that the soil becomes sandier. The sand that you're walking on is actually ancient beach sand. Long ago, the ocean levels were much higher, and the center of Florida was the beach. That's why many times when you find fossils in Florida, they're from aquatic animals. We've reached the sand hill. Notice how open and sunny it is here. Many of the trees in the sandhill are longleaf pines, and grasses are on the forest floor. The sandhill is home to many different plants and animals. It's also an ecosystem that needs fire. If you look closely at the base of those pine trees, you'll see they're charred from recent fires. The fire brings life back to the sandhill in many ways. There are several types of plants in the sandhill that only grow after a fire. The fire adds nutrients to the soil. And by having a fire every 2 to 5 years, it helps prevent out-of-control wildfires. Let's see if we can spot any animals in the sandhill. Do you see the white-tailed deer through the trees? Notice how it's staring at us. Deer have many predators in the forest, and their first instinct when they spot danger is to freeze. This allows them to blend in with their surrounding while deciding whether they need to run away or not. White-tailed deer are browsers. They don't graze on grass, but they are plant eaters. They eat leaves and twigs and berries from the trees throughout the sandhill. The deer aren't limited to the sandhill. We often find them in the swamp getting sips of water as well. This flock of turkeys includes 2 males in the middle who are strutting. Strutting is when the male turkeys puff up their feathers and fan out their tail feathers for 2 reasons. One is to show dominance to other male turkeys. Another is to impress the ladies. Do you see the turkey in the back with its wings spread out? Believe it or not, turkeys can fly. This is an important characteristic to help turkeys protect themselves. They often will find a nice cozy roost up in a tree at night where they are protected from more of the predators. Wild hogs were brought to Florida by the Spanish in the 1500s. They don't belong here, and they can cause quite a bit of destruction. They root up the ground, destroying native vegetation and making way for invasive plants to grow. The gopher tortoise is one of the most important animals we'll find in the sandhill. They use their shovel-shaped front feet to dig burrows. This burrow goes at least 6 feet deep, and it may be as long as 15 feet in length. While this gopher tortoise won't share its burrow with another gopher tortoise, it will share its burrow with many other animals in the sandhill. In fact, there's up to 350 different types of animals that have been known to share gopher tortoise burrows. They live in an ecosystem that burns frequently, so this burrow is an important place for animals to go for protection. It also serves as climate control for the gopher tortoise, who's a cold-blooded animal. The burrow stays at a fairly consistent temperature no matter how hot or how cold it is outside. The longleaf pine trees that we find throughout the sandhill have some unique characteristics, making them especially well suited for the sandhill. They have long, deep roots to reach water, which is important if you live in a dry ecosystem. Their thick bark is also very important to protect them from the frequent fires that take place in the sandhill. Longleaf pine trees do not reproduce with flowers. They reproduce with cones. You'll often see the cones on the ground. Once the cones are on the ground, the seeds that were once in them have long since either been eaten or blown away by the wind to hopefully reproduce into new longleaf pine trees. Now that we've taken a look at some of the plants and animals on the river and in the sandhill, let's think about how humans have had an effect on these ecosystems. The rhesus macaque monkeys we saw along the river have been bringing out tourists ever since they were brought here in the 1930s, but unfortunately they are destructive to the ecosystem. They eat more than their fair share of the native vegetation. They disrupt bird populations by eating their eggs, and they can affect humans because they carry a very deadly virus known as herpes B. Unfortunately, people still try to get a closer look at the monkeys by feeding them. We should never feed wild animals. This makes them lose their fear of humans and makes them even more dangerous. Like the monkeys, the wild hogs were also brought to Florida by humans. They directly compete with deer, turkey, and squirrel for food, all of those animals preferring things like acorns. They'll also eat things like turtle and tortoise eggs, even young mammals, including baby deer. They also like to eat young trees and seedlings, which can really damage our efforts to regrow the native longleaf pine trees that should be in our sandhill ecosystem. Take a closer look at this turtle we found in the river. Do you see all of the algae on the turtle's back? The Silver River should not have this much algae, but it does. You see, in Florida, we've used too many fertilizers. The fertilizers find their way into the aquifer, and then through the aquifer find their way into the Silver River. This fertilizer then causes the algae to grow uncontrollably. The algae uses more than its fair share of oxygen. It blocks the sunlight from the native vegetation, and it releases a lot of carbon dioxide. That can have serious negative effects on the health of the river, including all of the plants and animals that depend on the river for survival. Take a look at this aerial photo. This is an image not too far away from Silver River Museum. Where there are now stores and parking lots, there was once sandhill, home to deer, turkey, gopher tortoises. The gopher tortoises had to be relocated, and the deer and turkey had to find new forest for foraging. Unfortunately, when gopher tortoises are relocated, their success is not always guaranteed. This is known as habitat loss. Humans continue to compete for the same resources as the plants and animals in our ecosystems. Now that we've explored Silver River, take a look at some other plants and animals. What characteristics do you think help this prickly pear cactus survive? In your student field journal, record the characteristics and describe how you think they help the cactus survive. Did you notice that this eastern spotted skunk has climbed a tree? This behavior is unique. No other skunks in Florida climb trees. How do you think this characteristic helps them survive? The red-cockaded woodpecker is not an animal that we were fortunate enough to see out at Silver Springs State Park. Unlike other woodpeckers, they depend on living trees to make their cavities. Their preference is longleaf pine trees that are at least 100 years old. But unfortunately, in the 1800s and early 1900s, many of these trees were logged as lumber. Take a minute in your journal to describe how humans have affected the longleaf pine ecosystem, including the red-cockaded woodpecker. And then visit the link below to read about how scientists are helping this species recover. Go outside and take a look around your ecosystem. What plants and animals do you see? How do you have an effect on your ecosystem? Talk about this with your family. Are you making a positive impact? Or are you taking more than your fair share of resources? Record your thoughts in your journal. Thank you for joining me on this virtual field trip. I hope you enjoyed it, and I sincerely hope I get to see you out at Silver River Museum soon. In the coming weeks, I'll be posting some videos of some hands-on lessons, so be sure to ask your teacher to tune in. Thank you. See you next time.